So once we wait in line for an hour, we get to the front and they're like, oh yeah, your first flight doesn't have a number because you've been put on standby.
That's like getting mad at like the grocery store worker because the prices went up.
They overbook flights on purpose with the expectation that people are going to flake. We've been on about 30 flights this year and so far have not been able to get directly into the Centurion Lounge at all.
There's definitely a certain clientele that always
It's always
claps.
the people on United. This one is not only it like actually drive me nuts. They're not great. They're not bad, but they are consistent.
They're the best average, I feel like. Welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered Adventures. I'm Steven.
And I'm Giselle.
And we are also known as the Lover's Passport. And today we have a special episode that Giselle was very excited about. We just got back from our not favorite airport experience ever. And so
it was honestly, it wasn't that bad. It was just cumulatively annoying. So I'm calling this episode Airport Uncommon Sense because people don't have common sense anymore.
We did an episode last year called like our icks, and that was like a funny trend between like I talked about G's icks, she talked about my icks. If you haven't listened to it, that's pretty funny.
It was pretty funny to listen to, I will say. That was a fun one.
So I feel like this episode is going to be similar to that one in the sense that we're going to be talking about all of our travel icks when you're going through airports, like little things. When that happens, we both kind of look at each other and
you're like, really? Did that just happen? Like,
But yeah, anyway,
I made a whole note on my phone yesterday.
I have not seen this note yet, so I am very intrigued to see where we start off and where we end in this episode. I'm sure that I'll agree with like 90% of these.
I progressively wrote it down as we were going. So all of these we experienced in one day yesterday. So
all right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and jump in.
All right. I gotta go find my list here.
While we're waiting for that, if you guys are watching here on YouTube, welcome. Thank you for being here. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe. We're doing video. This is our first season doing video on the podcast. We're really, really excited about that. And yeah, if you guys are listening on Spotify or Apple Music, don't forget the best way to help share this or the best way to help support us is by sharing this episode with one other person. So while you're listening, if you're like, oh, that my friend totally does this while we travel, share this episode with them. That's the best way you can help support us. But yeah, with that, G has her list ready. Let's get going.
And if you do any of these, I hope you don't feel personally attacked, but it's just an opinion. That is all. Okay, let's get into it. First one. It's actually not directed at people. It's directed at airlines.
Oh boy.
And it's the fact that they can just bump you off the flight and put you on standby.
Okay, yeah.
Or just off the flight.
This one did happen to us yesterday. So we tried to check in online, right? Most online or most international flights, when you go to check in, they have this thing where you have to hit your passport or like the electronic documents, whatever things you have to fill out, immigration forms before you go in. You have to fill those out before you can finish checking in.
And normally it's not that bad of an issue. Like I do all of our airport check-ins. And so I usually can get away with checking us in online, even for an international flight, especially because Steve and I have global entry. We have like all of our airline numbers. So we're members with all of these. So usually it's fairly easy, especially if you're flying to like Europe or even in Asia, honestly, it wasn't that hard to check in advanced. But for some reason, yesterday we had a really hard time trying to check in advance. So of course we had to go to the counter to check in. And then we get to the counter and it's an hour-long wait just to check in. We weren't even checking bags. Like we brought carry-ons only because we want to avoid that kind of situation. Copa was the only one out of the whole airport in Punta Cana that like did not have the kiosks. Like there were other people in the terminal that were in the same one that had 0 lines because they also had kiosks. And so we were like, oh, this sucks. And then so once we wait in line for an hour, we get to the front and they're like, oh yeah, your first flight doesn't have a number because you've been put on standby. And usually when you get put on standby, it's because the airline thinks you're going to be like a no-show, whether it's because your connections were really tight or you just didn't check in super far in advance. Because that's one thing that you can do to help yourself from getting put on standby often is checking in like pretty early, like right at the 24-hour mark beforehand. But we couldn't do that, obviously. So we checked in at the airport. But it's just stupid that airlines can just do that. Like, I don't understand how that's still a rule. They overbook flights on purpose with the expectation that like people are going to flake. And then yesterday on our flight, when we did get on, they double booked one seat. There was a guy, I don't know if you saw this. There was a guy who was like, this is my seat. And the other guy was like, no, this is my seat. And they both had a boarding pass for the same seat.
Oh my gosh.
And then he ended up getting all the way to the back of the plane and had to check his bag. And we are like, OMG.
But yeah, the whole point of, or how airlines can just put you on standby, I think is crazy. Like,
Major ick.
What if it was your birthday and you're getting ready to go on this amazing trip to Italy?
Or your honeymoon.
And you arrive and they're like, oh yeah, you don't technically have a seat. We know that you bought a plane ticket, but if everyone shows up, we're just going to push your flight to tomorrow.
Like that
it's
is
okay.
so lame. That is a reason why you should always have travel insurance. Always.
It just blows my mind.
And for those of you that are wondering, because I know we always get questions on this, we just buy a year-long plan from Allianz, and we've had to use it a couple of times, so it's definitely worth it. But I think having an annual plan is way better than having to buy it every single trip. It just like ends up being more expensive buying it every single time. So
yeah,
anyways,
I think we've only missed 2 times when we've been on standby and haven't got on the plane. I think every other time when we've been on standby, we've got on it. We're just typically like the last person on the plane.
The usual thing that happens is we'll get pushed on standby if we can't check in advance. It's so stupid. The last time it happened to us, we were in Amsterdam, and it was the trip that Steven and I were flying out of our cruise from Amsterdam to Switzerland on the trip he was going to go propose on. And everything was in my name. And we were traveling with our friends Carly and Colin. They were able to check in, but we weren't. So they got on the flight and we were on standby, and that would have messed up so much stuff that trip if we didn't get on. So happy that we did, but it's a pain in the ass, and airlines should not be allowed to do it.
Anyway, that is
anyone lobbying in Congress against that, let me know.
First travel ick. All right. Number 2
is waiting over 30 minutes in line for lounges that you pay for mad annual fees on your credit cards for.
See, I don't pay for the annual fees, so when I show up to the lounge,
he does. He's on the account, but okay. I'm the one who notices.
Out of the two of us, G handles all. I don't know why it's like this, but I feel like most couples, the guy handles the finances, but for us, Giselle,
because we're progressive and it's 2024, and a woman can handle finances.
Yeah, G does all of our finances, so she's the one that books all of our flights, does all the planning, and when it comes to the credit cards, like she's the one that pays all of the entry fees. So for me, I just show up to the airport and I'm like, they let us into the lounge for free. This is
free
magical.
Food, free champagne. Yeah, it's girl math right there. But yeah, anyways, every time you go in the lounge, typically, well, at least this year, they made it really difficult to get lounge access. So the way we get it is through our Amex Platinum. This last trip, we went to the Amex Centurion Lounge at LAX, and we've been on about 30 flights this year, and so far have not been able to get directly into the Centurion Lounge at all.
Not once.
Not once.
Kind of well, we can like get into it, but you walk up to the lounge, and then there's an elevator to go up to the American Express Lounge, at least in LA. And when you walk up to the elevator, there's always a crowd at the bottom. Like, oh boy. And then there's a person at the front on the elevator before you can even go up to the lounge, and he says, nope, we're completely full. It's probably going to be between 15 to 30 minutes. And then after that, we typically get to the airport with like 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour max before our flight by the time we get through security and got our luggage checked and everything. So 15 to 30 minutes is like a lot of time.
That's like half our lounge time.
Yeah,
it's so sad.
It's a lot of time to lose, especially when you're trying to grab a drink or you have some work to respond to on the Wi-Fi in the lounge, and having to just go to the gate and stress about being there on time. It's just a whole
well
bit.
That's one thing, but we pay $695 a year for this Amex credit card, and that gives us lounge access. Like, we should be able to get in. That is a major perk of the card. That is one of the highest selling points of the card.
I feel like that's like paying $500 a month for a gym membership, and then every time you go to the gym, you have to wait 20 minutes before you go in.
Yeah, that's a good equivalent, except this is like an annual fee instead of a monthly fee, but still, I think there needs to be better regulations about it. I don't know what that is. Like, everyone agrees the lounges are all too crowded, and it's partially because like people now are all obsessed with gamifying the travel points and miles system. So like, obviously we're contributing to it because we want to help people also do the same thing. But at what price point, like, can you go up to, at $700 for a card? I was like, wow, there are so many people still paying for this card. We actually get our money's worth out of that because we get the $200 airline credit, $200 hotel credit, our, Priority Pass membership. We got Clear, we got Global Entry. So that card paid for itself for us. But if you're not a frequent flyer, I would not recommend that card, you know?
Yeah. And if you guys want, like, G has created like a full little free points mini guide. If you guys want access to that, just go on the Lover's Passport, go to our link in bio, and you should be able to find that. And we'll link it down below in the description if you guys are watching on YouTube as well. But if you ever
want to talk travel points and credit cards, I'm your girly.
I know we mentioned it earlier this season that we were going to be doing a podcast on points and miles. That is still coming. We just have a lot of other podcast episodes that we're very excited to share. So it's in the running. It's coming up in the next few weeks.
Yes. But anyways, that was my short little rant about it, because I feel like if you're paying so much for something, you should at least get some service.
But let us know down in the comments. Does that happen to you? Maybe it's just Los Angeles International Airport. It is probably one of the worst airports in the US.
I hate LAX.
Just because it's really busy. Everyone coming from overseas in Asia flies into LAX and connects before they fly into the US. It's probably just like in JFK. Most of Europe flies through JFK.
JFK is
or
pretty
Miami.
bad too.
So I'm assuming it's just up that problem. Like if we moved to Las Vegas and went to the Centurion Lounge there.
We actually, we don't really have problems with the Centurions in like Phoenix or Vegas. Like it's mostly an LA problem, but still, it's like our home airport. So I wish we could use it without, the hassle.
Anyway, Travel Ick.
That's an ick. That's a privileged ick, but this is Unfiltered Adventures. So
all right, moving on to number 3.
Number 3, people listening to things on planes without headphones on.
Oh my God.
This one is not only ick, it like actually drives me nuts. Like, why do people not understand that is so rude?
It's surprising
and
how
inconsiderate
often it happens on
every single flight.
We both wear noise canceling headphones. Like we love our Sony headphones. We wear them every single flight, and it's crazy when I'm like, wait, is that my movie playing or is that someone else's movie? And it's someone else just watching a movie on their laptop, loud as can be. Like, did you forget they give you free headphones on the airplane? Like, I don't understand why you would ever watch something without putting them in.
It's not acceptable.
Mind blowing to me.
It's like all the people that bring speakers on hikes and blast their like Katy Perry firework while you're hiking up a mountain. You're like, no, I came out here to listen to nature, not to your trash music,
Yeah, I don't know. That one is very interesting. I'm always curious, like I said, even if you forget headphones, they have free headphones for you. They always walk through.
They eliminate the problem. Yeah.
It was on our last flight. I was sitting next to someone and she literally pushed the little help button and was like, excuse me, can you tell the person up there to stop playing their music? Like sometimes I'm
surprised the flight attendants didn't do it without prompting though. Because most of the time I feel like they're pretty good about going up to the person and be like, hey, don't do that. But this flight yesterday was just uncommon sense. Yep. A lot of things. That's
one thing I feel like that maybe it's because we travel all the time. Like G said, it's May and we've been on 30 plus flights already this year. So we do travel a lot. I feel like it's crazy. There's definitely sectors of the world where I don't know if it's because they don't travel as much. Like I feel like anytime we fly into LAX, everyone there feels like they're like a seasoned traveler.
Then you leave and you go to anywhere in Central or South America or Asia and those places in particular, and you get all the airport clappers, you get all the people who have very little regard for other people on the flight, and it's all about them and their families.
The amount of pushing and shoving when I'm like, bro.
I was going to get into this. This is another one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm jumping ahead. Anyway, Travel Ick number 3, please bring headphones if you guys are listening to a movie or anything when you're on the airplane.
Yeah, it's just respectful. I don't know. Like you probably don't want to listen to my music and I don't want to listen to yours.
It's like when you're on the subway. Can you imagine if like the 40 people on the subway were all listening to their own music?
Yeah.
That'd be chaotic.
I'm sure nobody wants to listen to my never-ending Taylor Swift on repeat. You know?
How can you even listen to the movie on the airplane while
so
the
loud?
Jet engines are going on? Like, do you even hear what's going on? I don't know.
Anyways, so that was number 3.
All right, number 4, Travel Ick.
Like I said, these are not in order. So people that don't know how to go through security.
Okay, this one
was really weird. Yesterday, this old American couple went through, and you could tell they were seasoned travelers. Their suitcase had quite a few travel stickers or whatever. He went through the security machines and then left his carry-on outside of the machines and never put it through. And he just ended up creating this massive line and stalling everyone. And this TSA agent had to go and pack his bag and put it through the machine for him. And everyone had to wait until it went through, until she came back.
I feel like I'm having a hard time like imagine like there, when you're going through security, there's like the beginning of the line, right? And you stack all your stuff on the conveyor belt.
You take off your shoes, you put your laptop in.
So your stuff goes through the machine, like what Giselle was saying. And then you personally walk through like the metal detector, right?
The body scanner where they're like putting your hands above you and you have to.
He put his stuff on the conveyor belt.
No.
He didn't walked through. Well, he had multiple
put it
things.
On. Yeah.
He put his stuff on the conveyor belt and he walked through the metal detector, and he was sitting there on the other side waiting, and like person kept going through, and then finally somebody in front of us looked and was like, hey, someone left their suitcase here, which can be like a quote unquote problem, like that could be a security risk, but it was just an old guy that didn't put it through.
I just was like, how did you forget your carry-on? I don't know, but maybe it's just a lapse of judgment, but I'm still like, what? How do you just forget your suitcase? That's like the most important thing at the airport. It's one thing if you forget like a small item, like a fanny pack or like a passport, like that, it happens a lot. But a full suitcase, I don't know. I was laughing.
Feel like that one goes on both sides though. Like when you talk about people that don't know how to go through security, on the other part of it, you have the TSA agents that are some
of them are morons,
a little too intense. Like
some of them I think the worst ones were in North Carolina when we were transferring through. I forget, we were coming back from like an international trip and we had to connect through North Carolina. They were the rudest people I've ever seen, and
they were
like
intense.
Typically. Oh, I guess this is another ick on the fly. Is when TSA pre-check, you have TSA pre-check and the line's not open, and they make you go through the regular line, and you're like, oh no. Like I think that's what happened on that trip. So then we had to do all the
it's crazy,
the normie things.
Like if you guys are a creator, or let's say you enjoy taking photos when you traveling with camera gear and then traveling without camera gear, two very different experiences, right? So that's what I meant by like when I'm going through, and sometimes the TSA agents are, I don't know if they're new or maybe they feel like they're just the sheriff in town or what it is, but sometimes I put on my suitcase and it goes through and I have drones and Insta360s and GoPros, 2 camera bodies, 3 lenses, like 2 tripods, all this stuff. And they look at it and I'm like, do I need to take any of this out? Because you know how typically you're supposed to take out your big electronics before you go through, and they're like, no, looks good. And then we have other people that'll open it up and they're like, you have to take out every single, and there's some airports where you go through security and then you get to the gate and you go through security again. So I have to pull out all of my stuff for a second time. I'm like, what is going on here?
This is why you get to the airport early for that reason. The surprise security screenings. But I clearly remember, I think the last time that happened was when we were in Mallorca. And we were like, they were just like, nope, you have to go through again. You have to go through again. And we're like, oh, come on. That time we also had a problem getting back. Like they messed up our flight reservation, our travel agent that booked it. And we're like, what the heck? That's why I like booking all of our stuff. But when our clients book our travel, they usually use travel agencies. I'm like, can I please just do it? Please. Like I will not make mistakes.
If you ever get in the position when you're going through and the security is really giving you a hard time, the keyword is YouTuber.
Oh my gosh. When we were in Jordan 2 years ago, like in the Middle East, they're definitely a lot more suspicious of people traveling with a ton of camera gear for good reason. You're not allowed to bring drones in most places out there. So we didn't bring ours, but we have like the 100 to 500 millimeter lens, and that ticks off a lot of people.
It's basically like 3 cans of beans stacked on each other. Like it's a big lens.
A lot of places won't allow you to bring that in or a tripod in. The airport, you're still fine to transit with it, obviously, but yeah, they were giving us a hard time. And then the second, they're like, what are you doing this for? What are you doing this for? Instagram, or not Instagram. They were like,
are you a spy? What are you doing?
No, not a spy, but like TV, whatever. And we're like, oh, no, for YouTube. And they're like, oh, YouTube?
They're like, what's your username? What's this?
And they're like, oh, go. Can we get a photo? And we were like, what just happened? Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, it was pretty funny. So I would say just say you're a YouTuber. They get really excited about that.
Yeah. Anyway, that was Travel Ick number 4. Moving on. I guess there was a bonus one.
Yeah, I guess that was like 4 and 5.
So we will move on to Travel Ick number 6.
People that try to board early when they're the last boarding group.
Oh, you mean like the people that cut in line?
Well, no. Like, you know, when they're like on boarding group, like number 1, and then they're just like, standing and lingering.
Okay. Well, I feel like the thing that gets me with that is where everyone stands, right? Like, I think Southwest, out of all the airlines, probably does the best job of like mitigating like where people stand. They put numbers up there, like, okay, if I'm in Group A, I'm going to line up 1 through 30 and then 30 through 60, right? And everyone else knows to stay out of there. Like, they don't get close. Most other airlines, they board by group, right?
They do group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from those
there's
part.
there's nowhere really for people to line up. So when they say, okay, we're getting ready to board, it just becomes this mash like of people just surrounding the entrance gate. And then when they're like Group 1, you're like trying to muzzle yourself in there and you're just pushing yourself through the crowd. And most of the people that are standing there are like Group 6. It's like, what do you do? Like,
now listen. I used to be one of those people. I'll call myself out here because I was a anxious flying girly. I am the type of person that, well, I'm going to say in the past tense because I don't do this anymore. But 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I was that person that had to go make sure my gate existed, sit there, and if they started boarding, I had to be ready to go. I was like, let's go. They're boarding. I'm making sure I'm getting my carry-on there, But now I'm like, after just flying so much, I don't get it anymore, I've lost a lot of my type A tendencies.
I don't think so.
Not
I think
lost,
that
but like settled down on them.
I was gonna say before, I always live by the terms like don't stress about it until there's something to stress about, right? So for instance, if we get put on standby, I'm like, you know what? That's okay. We'll just, if we get to the gate and they're like, we don't have a seat for you, then yes, go into panic mode, stress mode.
I am the opposite. I'm like, I will find alternative flights right now. Worst case scenario, I'm going to be prepared. Boy Scout motto,
Yeah, so fair. But I mean, we balance each other out, but I feel like that is definitely a good ick. It does frustrate me though when you're like trying to pull your suitcase through and there's people all over the place and you're trying to get to the gate and they're like, especially when you're waiting in line and you see that you're Group 3 or 4 and there's a Group 7 person or like a big group of them just waiting in front. I mean, I don't know how
basic
the airline
math people 1 2 3, not 1 6 3.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're one of these people, we're not trying to call you out. These are just
this is just a little roast session.
We're in the airport. So we're in the airport just as much as we're in this room, like recording the podcast. We record a weekly probably more. We're in the airport every single week. This week we're going to LAX 4 times. So
we're kind of pros at this. We're roasting you now so you don't get roasted in public.
Exactly. There you go. All right, moving on. This is number 7. Oh boy.
Okay. People who fly Southwest and don't know it's open seating.
Oh god.
This literally, I was just on the phone with my mom and this happened where we were flying. Where were we flying? Like back from New Mexico or something?
This one is so true, guys. It's like absurd.
I'm shook by how many people book a Southwest flight and do not know that they don't have seat assignments. So if you're listening and you've never flown Southwest, they are completely open seating unless you have like priority embarkation or whatever, in which case you still don't have an assigned seat. Like you get on. Okay, this is how Southwest works. It's like the Hunger Games. You have a 6 a.m. flight, right? 24 hours before at 6 a.m., you have to be on the app. You check in, you get assigned a boarding group number. And that is how, what Stephen was saying, they line you up by boarding group number. So there's A group, B group, and C group. And then within those groups, you have like 1 through 30 and 31 through 60. So you get a boarding position rather than a seat number. And all of the seats are basically the same. Like I would never pay for like an upgraded flight ticket on Southwest ever because you really don't get much out of it. And plus, I would just run to the emergency exit row because that's the move if you don't have open seating. But anyways, the fact that people book these flights and do not know that, I'm like, do you read their website? This guy started yelling at our flight attendant on Southwest a couple flights ago because he was like, you guys don't advertise this. This is the worst airline ever. Like, I should have my assigned seat. I didn't pay for this, blah, blah, blah. And he was throwing in some curse words, whatever. Yeah, he almost got banned off the flight because he's being so rude.
I was crazy. He was just very upset. He's like, I paid $800 per person.
And he was sitting in the back row.
The very back of the row. And I'm like,
we were in the back row too.
I'm like, it happens, man. Like sometimes you don't, it's Southwest. I just think it's so interesting because Southwest doesn't show up, correct? If you look on Google or like Kayak
you have
or anything.
to book through like Southwest to find it.
When you book on there, it is very clear that
if
they
you
have.
read.
I mean, yeah, that goes back to people don't read. Common
Comprehension,
sense.
baby.
Yeah, but anyway, it's just crazy to us when you get on the flight. I mean, granted, Southwest could do a better job, I guess, every single time they start boarding, be like, reminder that it's open seating. But I feel like they do that
most of the time, and it's online. I don't know. There's just many touch points, and people don't pay attention.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I do so much research before we go on a trip. I make sure, I look at the airline, I look at their boarding groups, I look at the visas you need. There's so much that goes out. And for you to make an internal error like that and then go have the audacity to be rude to flight attendants, that is another bonus hick, is when people are rude to flight attendants.
Yeah.
These people have to deal with so much shit. Please be nice to them. And
I totally agree. Especially let's say your flight gets canceled or you get put on standby.
Like the gate agents are people.
Yeah, I feel like that's like getting mad at like the grocery store worker because the prices went up. Like you can't really get mad at the worker. That's something that you go and you talk to like the airline about afterwards.
Get some points and compensation after on the app or something, or call a representative after. It's frustrating in the moment, but that's once again why you have travel insurance. And like everyone's a human. When you get really heated into it, I will always remember when we had this crazy flight connection in the first time we came from Tenerife back home, and we had to stop in Madrid, and we're like running full sprinting through the airport, like me almost freaking hyperventilating at the end because we were sprinting so fast trying to make it. And we technically made it, but our bags wouldn't, so they wouldn't let us on. And we had to get back for a job. Like it was the next day. It was one of those, we had back-to-back tourism jobs. So we had to be in Connecticut the next day, and they had canceled our or there were no other flights out. You could either fly into New York or Miami, and we had to get placed on standby if we were going to do that. And so this woman was in a screaming match with one of the gate agents. I think it's because it was like a national holiday or something in Spain, and people weren't working. Like there were 2 gate agent employees. And we just waited in line. We were very respectful, very kind to the person. And they let us end up just like canceling our original flight back to Connecticut and booking to JFK, which, if you know, is still about the same. Like it's only like an hour from Connecticut. So we ended up just canceling our rental car in Connecticut, booking a new one, and we flew standby home. And that worked out perfectly. But I think the only reason that she got us on that flight is because we were really nice versus the woman who was screaming her ear off right next to us. And then once that woman found out that we got on a flight and she didn't, she went even crazier, man. This woman went cuckoo. She was definitely one of those like Karens from Florida that thought she was like better than everyone else.
I feel like obviously we have to give people the benefit of the doubt. We travel a lot, so we're used to all of these things going wrong.
You have to be a go with the flow person.
Yeah,
when you travel,
if this is your only trip of the year, then yes, I understand why you'd be like, everything must be perfect. If this doesn't work, like I'm taking time off work for us, when we're traveling, it is work. So we're just like, when we're coming home, I guess we're a little bit more like lenient because we don't have to be anywhere. But when we're flying out somewhere, like we're not on our dime, we're on a client's dime. So we need to be like, get there on time, make sure we have enough time to shoot. So when we are delayed a day, like it really makes a big dent for us, especially when it comes to work and when it's people's vacations too. So like we give people the benefit of the doubt. It's just crazy because we see so many different types of travelers. Like these are things that we see
all the time.
None of these things have been like one time this has happened and then we're putting it out. These are all like we see them
repeated occurrences
over and over and over. So with that, let's jump into travel. I feel like that was another bonus one.
That was a bonus one.
So we're on
like 9 now?
Oh
yeah,
boy.
I think we're on 9.
Almost double digits.
All right. Clappers. I hinted at this one earlier, but when you land and everyone on the plane erupts into clapping, I'm like, what? They just did their job.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's pretty funny.
That's like, what's the equivalent of that? Like someone filling up your gas for you and you clapping? They just literally did their job. They're pilots. That's what they do. Now, the exception is if, you're flying through some crazy turbulence store and thought you were going to die, then maybe the clapping's deserved. But most of these flights are like very anticlimactic flights, and they're just like 2 hours long, and we land, and then the whole airplane bursts into clapping.
There's definitely a certain clientele that always
It's always
claps.
the people on United. or United Transfer Partners. Literally without fail, it is always that airline. We are not huge people that fly that voluntarily.
We're Delta fans. That's
we're
who we fly
Delta.
everywhere we go.
Well, and Southwest. We're big. Okay, so our top 3.
Oh boy, here we go.
We have Delta, Daddy Delta on top. Shout out to Janelle on a jet for that one. She got us hooked on Delta because I used to not like them a while ago. I had a lot of bad experiences, but then ever since I started playing the points and miles game, we love Delta.
We literally have Delta pajamas.
Oh, I know. We got Delta onesies sent from the Delta PR team. I was so excited. Delta. And then our probably go-to domestic right now is Southwest because we got the companion pass, which we just have to do a points and miles episode because this thing is insane.
Once again, plugging the points and miles freebie.
Shameless plug. And then the last one, number 3, is American. That's who we're actually flying out on tomorrow. We just lost our status with them and I'm so sad, but it's because we haven't flown with them in a while, but they are consistently good. They're not great. They're not bad, but they are consistent.
They're the best average, I feel like. I would almost compare it as to Delta is the Target or the Whole Foods. And then you go down and I feel like Southwest is your neighborhood Trader Joe's. It's a little step above. And then I feel like American is the Walmart. They're everywhere.
No. I don't think American's Walmart. I think Spirit Airlines is Walmart.
I feel like Spirit Airlines is the pawn shop down the street. That's the place where you go where you're okay, I have no other option in life. I have to go here.
Okay, maybe that's the grocery outlet, whatever. Yeah, that's funny.
I feel like
actually.
Walmart's great.
Steven loves Walmart.
I'm a big Walmart fan. Anyway, taking us into
Side note.
This is number 10 now. Are we up to Travel Ick number 10?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
Oh, I actually did have people who yell at gate agents on here, so that I foreshadowed.
That one's really explain to us if I feel like the same people that yell at gate agents are also the people that yell at everyone else in the world if they go back and try and get a refund. They're yelling at people because of their bad refund policy, or if they get their food and it's not perfect, they're gonna yell.
Never expect good airline food.
I feel like that's just a type of person.
Yep. They need to go read a mindset book. That's what they need to do.
Yeah. If you missed last week's, or I think it's a couple weeks now, mindset, overcoming beliefs, overcoming judgment. It's a really good episode. Definitely go take a listen.
I just finished a book called Mindset on our plane flight yesterday, and there's a lot that people could just learn from that.
Yeah.
And just being a communication major, a lot of things about internal versus external attribution errors, people that blame everyone else for their problems when they have a lot of self-work to do. That's what a lot of these people on this Icks list are doing.
We have a lot of really, really good book recommendations. So if you guys on the podcast ever want a list of book recommendations, we could even do a dedicated these are our 10 books you need to read before you die style books.
We could just make a small video on that.
I feel like that's a great one. Anyway, we'll jump back into this.
Number 10, I think, is parents that won't parent their kids on flights.
Oh, this one's rough. We're not parents yet.
And I want to say anyone who travels with kids, you guys are freaking rock stars. Good for you. We hope to do that in the future. But there is a difference between a crying baby and a parent trying to do something on a flight, and a crying baby and a parent absolutely ignoring their kid the whole time. So I have full sympathy for parents that are trying to, take care of their kid. They need something, right? It's not a pleasant experience for a lot of small children or toddlers. But when there are toddlers, for example, throwing full on tantrums and the parents are oh, sweetie, just stop, blah, blah, blah. And they're not doing anything. I'm hello.
Yeah, I don't
know. And then that gets into a whole parenting conversation. But like I said, we're not parents. So we can't really, attest to what we would do in that situation. But there's definitely parents who handle it super well, and then ones that do not at all.
Yeah, I really feel like that's a parenting episode, because I feel like traveling just makes everything a little bit more not heightened, extreme, but heightened is good, because most of the time you're tired. Most of the time you're in transit, so you're having to go places quick. Most of the time you're paying a lot of money to go stay at these hotels and to go on these flights. So there's just all the big things that cause people stress when it comes to money and time and being on time and things going wrong. I feel like travel, like we were just saying, just heightens everything. So if you're struggling to be a parent at home and then you try and travel with your kids, I feel like it just makes it 10 times worse compared to if you're at home, you're pretty stern with your kids, you have rules, they listen really well, you guys understand each other. I feel like you'd almost have to do mini trips with your kid. Be like, okay, today we're going to go on a trip to our local big city, like us taking our kid to LA. And then like, okay, this weekend we're going to go on a 2-day
Work
trip
your
down
way
to
up,
San
yeah.
Diego. And then this weekend we're going to do it. We're not just going to be like, all right, our baby's 1 month old, let's fly to London, or our 2-year-old has never been on a
my
trip.
Parents low-key did that, but
I don't know.
that's because so my mom and my dad traveled with me and my twin brother when we were like 6 months old, but apparently we were great babies on flights, so we were just traveling, in the blood. But I really don't think the crying babies argument is a strong one for people, because they could just get soundproof headphones, so that doesn't bother me. It really is like the preparedness and the willingness to try to help out your kid while flying.
The one that does bug me, and this is, I feel like the parents can definitely do something about this, is when you're sitting in the seat and you're just getting throttled.
You got a kicker.
The kid behind you is just freaking extending his legs, bending his like, this is a game. Let me see how much I can
this
whiplash
falls
this
under
guy's
the parents
head.
that won't parenting thing. Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, if the parent's sitting next to them, I've literally heard parents chuckle when they see it happening. They're like, I'm like, bro, there's a person
I will literally,
up here.
there's a certain line where I'm like, okay. And then I turn around and I'll say something like, hey, please don't kick my seat. Thank you. Like,
and I mean, I taught kids taught 3-year-olds all the way up to adults for years. I was my martial arts instructor for 13 years. So when I was doing that, I had to deal with a bunch of unruly kids. I had to learn how to teach them. So, I mean, there's definitely things that you can do to help your kids not do that the entire plane flight. But that is definitely one. I agree. It's never the kid's fault. Kids just living his life. I feel like it really has to fall on the parents and how they handle the situation, and even being like apologetic to the person that it's happening to, like, hey, I'm sorry that my kid's doing this, like I'll try and take care of it. Like, just communicating, I feel like, is a big thing, rather than like, and it falls on the traveler too. If let's say a kid's bugging you and you like bust out of the kid, that's totally on the traveler's fault. It's nothing to do with the kid at all. But yeah,
anyways, yeah, that's a nuanced topic. So, curious to hear your thoughts if you have some thoughts on that. But second to last one.
Oh boy.
This one's kind of menial, and I noticed that it bothered me yesterday, which is why it's an ick. When flight attendants they pour your drink and then they put ice in it instead of putting ice in first and then pouring your drink.
Wait, what?
I think this is just in general, not just flight attendants, but I just noticed it yesterday where I was like, why does that bother me?
Are you one of the people that it bothers you when people pour milk in their bowl and then
before
puts the
cereal? Who the hell does that? You're a monster if you do that. My God. The potential mess that you can make from pouring in milk first, and then like you're just gonna splash things. Like, it just makes more sense to do the ice first and then the drink.
Man, I don't know if I don't know if I've ever seen a flight attendant do water then ice. You're right. That is kind of funky.
I thought it was so odd. Yesterday they were pouring a Coke. They poured the Coke all the way up to the brim and then stuffed the ice in.
I feel like it's dangerous.
That's weird.
Like, it could overflow. Like, how do you know the perfect amount of ice?
And then they're going to spill on me if there's some random turbulence. Anyways, but yeah, I thought that was a funny one, but I thought I'd share. Really small ick. That is a true ick.
See, that happened to you. For me, they filled up my water glass like half, and I'm parched. This is a 7-hour flight, and they gave us 2 half a cup of waters. I was like, bro, I'm a big person over here. You need to feed me some more.
The lady next to me ordered 3 drinks at once because they were like half-assing.
See, that's what I should have done, man. I was like, but we did. Okay, I feel like it changes though per airline. Some of like the more budget airlines, and I feel like it changes on the flight attendant too. Like, some of them really just treat you right. They're like, hey, I got some extra meals back here. Do you want 2? I remember one trip, my first trip to Iceland, I was flying up there by myself, and they bring you like your little dinner, right? They said they had 3 extras, so I got 3 slices of pizza.
They gave you 3?
They gave me 3.
Damn,
but it was also like an empty flight, so I was all about it.
That's like, you never know who you're going to get at Chipotle, if they're going to really load up the burrito or not. Like, sometimes it's like bursting at the seams, and sometimes it's a little poquito burrito.
Man, that's crazy. I did not notice that they were doing water and then ice. That I wouldn't say that's an ick. It's just like a weird thing.
I was like, the cereal and bulk or cereal and milk example. That's exactly how I feel about it. Okay.
Are you like, what about when you see people eating on airlines? ever irritate you? Like, do you ever feel the urge if they're not going to eat their dessert to ask for your dessert?
No.
Is that an ick?
The lady next to me didn't touch her food at all, and I was not going to be like, hey, can I have that?
But is it rude if I ask?
I mean, she paid for it. I feel like you want to wait and see if they offer. Be like, hey, do you want this?
I see.
Somebody's just hungry, boy.
It's almost
Bring
dinner
snacks,
time here.
buddy.
That's one thing I feel like we never do is because you're not allowed to bring water or like drinks into the airport, right? So I never think to like bring anything else because I'm always worried they're gonna make me throw my PB&J or something away.
They're like all these TikToks of these people doing snackle boxes, like the tackle bait boxes. Karen, what are you doing? And they pack all these fancy snacks for their airline flights. But if Steve and I did that, that's like, I don't know, bringing our lunch to work every day.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
guess. But we definitely could be better about bringing better snacks.
Especially if these lounges keep saying 30, 45-minute waits.
Oh, crazy. Okay, last one.
Oh boy,
on my
drum
list.
roll. Last one.
When people don't know how to zipper off the airplane and they try and cut you, unless
you mean like
you know
when
what I
you're
mean?
exiting.
Okay, so the zipper for my people that are not visually watching this on YouTube, the zipper is when you get up. There's 2 aisles, right? So the first aisle goes on your left, and the next 3 people go that are in aisle 1 on your right. Then aisle 2 will go on the left, then aisle 2 on the right will go, and then you just keep on zippering. It's like merging on the freeway, right? So, everyone goes row by row and then you get off. That's just customarily how it works on airplanes. I swear, yesterday, everyone behind us tried cutting us, getting and like shoving us behind. Usually it's, I feel like teenagers to
that
like,
one was, those were moms
yeah.
and men. That was crazy.
But yeah, they were like pushing and shoving, trying to get past us. And I literally was like, excuse me, like that's not how it works.
Yeah. These people, I feel like the guy that was sitting next to me stuck his arm out and grabbed the chair across him and was like, no, I'm going to stand up. And then he stood up and kept walking. But it is really interesting to see when people do that. I'm curious if they like
I just don't think they know, maybe, but yeah, like I said, uncommon sense. And so
it just comes back to like courtesy almost. Like it's like
wait your turn.
Yeah, if you're walking in the door, are you gonna cut someone off trying to walk in the door? Are you gonna shove them? It's so interesting.
It's like people on the freeway like cutting you off and then swerving in and out of lanes to save maybe 2 minutes, when in reality you could just stay in one lane and you'd get there 2 minutes after, and it's really not a big deal. Now, my caveat to this is if they have a really tight connection, I'm fine with them like going in front of us and trying to make their flight.
I feel like that,
as long as they're not assholes about it.
I feel like it's almost up to the flight attendants. That like we've been on flights where the flight attendants are like, okay, we landed 30 minutes late. There's 8 passengers on this flight that need to get to the next one immediately. If you could please stay seated and please let them stand up, go as fast as they can. And we've seen people do that. Like, that's totally okay. The flight attendants took charge.
Sometimes the flight attendants will do that, and we're those passengers that have to run, and people don't let you go through. And it's like, oh, dude, you literally just screwed me. So I have sympathy for that particular exception. But yeah, it's annoying. It's one thing though if you book a connection that's too short versus having a flight that got delayed and now you have to run.
Yeah. What is I guess you can't say what is the minimum amount of time you can book.
I say 1 hour.
Well,
every single
1 hour. Airport's like different. Like if it's in Santa Barbara, for instance, you don't need an hour to go from one flight to the next.
20 minutes. But
if it's like Amsterdam or like if it's Colorado, you might need 3 hours.
Dude, no. We literally stopped connecting in Denver on purpose. I would rather pay more money to connect in a different airport, because every time we connect in Denver, we are having a full-on freaking marathon running with luggage, and I feel like I'm gonna die. I need to go do sprints to honestly
flying out of Denver is okay. We have no problem. Like
a direct
we
flight
really like
in
Denver.
and out of Denver is fine, but connecting, hard pass.
Especially if it's from an international to a stateside. Oh man, I feel like because you have to switch terminals, then you jump on the trains. It gets crazy. But yeah, definitely had some. And going back to the zipper method and people not listening to it, it's always drives me crazy when you see them like pushing and they push you over and they run past you, and then you get off the airplane and they're not even in a rush. They're sitting there, they're unpacking their bag right outside right outside where you exit out of the gate. It's like, well, what were you pushing for? Like, what's the point here? I don't know.
People are just rude. Unfortunately, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I feel like you could go back to every single one of these different icks, and it all comes back down to, like, as you said, common sense or like just respect
Uncommon
and courtesy
sense.
for other people when you're traveling.
I think the biggest thing about traveling frequently is packing your patience. And, you know, we're making fun of all of this now. But when we're actually in the situations like this where there's something that bothers us, we're super polite.
It's kind of just
very
like
kind,
a
very
roll
respectful.
your eye.
Yeah,
and
you
you're
kind of
like,
just do we look at each other and we're like, really? Okay. And don't dwell on it. But I feel like people, you know, don't really know what to do anymore. There's this one girl who, I forget what her name is on TikTok. She did a how to go through security for dummies, basically. And it was the funniest video I've seen in a very long time. It was like 2 years ago that she posted this, and it still sticks in my head for that reason.
Oh, I don't think I've seen this video.
Yeah, I'll have to pull it up. It was so beyond funny. But I'm sure if you type in like TSA security, like funny, whatever, it'll probably come up on TikTok. But she was like so blunt of like, she's just like, all right, idiots, this is how you take off your shoes. Stick them in the bag. Don't linger. Be prepared. Have your clear toiletry bag. Put in the bag. Take out your laptop. Don't be an idiot. Go through. Like, it was just like so blunt and aggressive, but it was so accurate.
Oh,
That's kind of that's the video that people need to watch.
I feel like that is something that we should say. All of these experiences are going through with TSA pre-check. I would be very interested to see the different experience. We probably have some even crazier stories.
I mean,
we are going through regular
we
security.
still go through regular security anytime we're international.
But I feel like when it comes to like taking your shoes off, or it could be people's first flights if you're just going through regular security.
But if I was going on my first flight, there are so many resources out there right now where I would look at everything. Be like, okay, it's my first flight. I'm going out of LAX and I'm flying to Europe for the first time this summer. At Steven's brother, for example, what should I do? Okay, well, the first thing that you're going to need to do is check in for your flight. You can do that online, or you can do it at the gate, or you can do it at the kiosk. There's like 3 options. Okay, now that you have your boarding pass, now you're going to have to go through security. What do I have any special security clearances, or do I go through regular security? If you have to go through regular security, then you have to take off your shoes, take out your electronics, take out your toiletries in the regulated TSA bag, the 311 rule. Look that up if you don't know what that is. And then you go through security screening. If you get the SSSS on your boarding pass, that means you've been selected for a secondary security screening, where at the gate, you're going to have to go and get patted down and all of that stuff all over again. So give yourself extra time when you're going to the gate. And then after that, you're home free. You go make sure your gate exists. You know how far away it is from wherever you're going to be lingering before your flight. You know that the gate probably will close at least 10 minutes before your flight, so you need to be there. And your gate usually, or your plane usually boards, if it's an international flight, an hour before its actual takeoff time. And if it's a domestic flight, usually about 30 minutes. So that is your airport summary.
Wow. I feel like we should bundle that up, and, you know, they should have that in all the Ubers leading up to the airport.
Like, here's how to airport. I actually am literally going to start a how to slay the airport with G series on TikTok and Instagram.
I mean,
because
it's like,
it's uncommon sense, but we have it. So I'm here to share with the world. And then, I mean, I could keep going. You have your phone on full brightness for that scanning of your boarding pass. If you are using a mobile boarding pass, okay, then you have the printed one.
I'm surprised
always.
They still have the printed ones. Like,
honestly, I like having a paper copy too.
But why? Why do you like
redundancy? I like redundancy. Okay,
like if your phone dies or something.
Yes, exactly. What if it happens? You never know. It could happen. And then you get on the plane. You go la-di-da-di-da. You put your bag in above your seat, right? Now, there's usually pictures on the boarding thing. This is another ick, I guess, another bonus one of if you have to put your suitcase up in the bins, right? There's horizontal bins and there's vertical bins. Look inside the bin and it will tell you which way to put it.
That one is pretty funny.
A lot of people do not read that, and so I think it's hilarious.
I really like the vertical bins. Whoever
vertical bins are optimized,
dropping it down that extra 6 inches so that way you can fit the full suitcase in vertically is like that man is a genius. I feel like that was a great design.
Next thing is you put your personal item below your seat, right? You don't put your personal item up in the bins because you take away valid space for people with carry-ons that need to go up there. Do not put your jackets or your tiny little things above the seat unless you did not bring a carry-on roller bag or a big bag. Because it drives me, like the last flight we were on, we were forced to check our carry-ons because these people had all these extra little tiny things up in the things. And it's like, it could have fit if you guys moved your stuff to where it was supposed to be. Anyways. And that is basically it, I think. Then you're sitting down, you put your seatbelt on, and you listen to that safety demonstration, you show the flight attendant some respect.
Oh man, I feel like we could do a pretty good safety demonstration. We've watched that.
I read once that like you are 80% more likely to survive a plane crash if you actually read the emergency directions and listen to the safety briefing. So ever since then, I've always listened, even though I've been on a million flights.
I feel like the safety cars are different though.
They are. Yeah. And especially if we're sitting in an emergency exit road, I'm ready. I'm like, oh, is this one where we're pulling the window thingy down and we're pulling it off and then we're getting out? Or is this one where we have to like, there's a lever, pull the lever crank?
Oh no.
Anyways, that was my little airport summary for you first time flyers. But
yeah, I think that is it for our travel, or these aren't even travel.
These are my travel icks. Did you have any?
I can't think of anything. I don't get bothered too much by things at the airport. At the things that we went through, I feel like we're covered 99.9% of it. I think the only other thing that I could think of is when airports don't have Wi-Fi. That's like
our flight yesterday had literally no screens or Wi-Fi, and I was like, what do I do?
That could be another thing, like when airports don't have like when airplanes don't have screens these days. I'm like, it's 2024, bro. We've been flying for a while. Like that if the airline doesn't put screens, like unless you're Spirit, then I don't know.
Like this one, I would have thought Copa would have had screens. Like they give you like the thing where you can sync with your phone or whatever, but my phone was gonna die and they didn't have plugs. Oh, that's an ick, not having plugs on the flight.
That isn't I feel like that one, I'm curious why. Like when
they have the USBs, but not the plugs.
My question is, why don't they have USB-Cs? Like USBs are so outdated now.
Because these planes are so old, I don't
know.
I have my little flighty app where I track all the planes we fly on, and a lot of them are at least 20 years old. So it makes sense. But
anyway, we'll be wrapping up this episode of Unfiltered Adventures. Let us know. Go follow us on Instagram at Unfiltered Adventures Podcast. Let us know which one of these travel icks makes you have the ick the most.
Or did you have one that we didn't go over? Because I love hearing about people's airport icks.
Yes, go let us know on Instagram. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, if you guys are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to give us a 5-star review, and please share this on your Instagram story, or just text the link to one of your friends if you think that they would also enjoy this, or maybe they have some of their own travel icks themselves.
Or maybe they're going on their first flight and they need to hear my little summary at the end.
That was a pretty good summary, I will say.
I feel like I could be a bomb flight attendant, just saying.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep.
Anyway, with that, we will be wrapping up this episode of Unfiltered Adventures, and we will see you next Friday with another adventure.
Bye.